Hello and welcome to the Pickup WNBA podcast. I'm your host, Cathryn Eicher.
And I'm your other host, Freddie Rivas. What's up?
And this is episode 128, baby. And boy, do we have a special one for you.
Yeah, we have an incredible episode here. And let me just say before we get going, make sure to subscribe to all of our social medias, the Pickup WNBA podcast. I think specifically YouTube, Instagram. That's big for us. And then we have this ACAST survey going with the Sonar Network as well. So we want to thank everyone who's been filling that out and kind of giving us feedback and, trying to help us get better ads for you. And I think without further ado, we're going to introduce, if you're on YouTube, you're like, hold on, there's another person here. And yeah, it's a very special episode. So I'll let Cathryn take it away.
Yes, joining us today, really an iconic journalist, a pioneer in women's sports journalism and broadcasting, a columnist for USA Today. Plus, she has written a book that's coming out later this summer called On Her Game, Caitlyn Clark and the Revolution of Women's Sports. Give it up for Christine Brennan.
Woo!
How are you?
I wanted to clap too, it felt right.
Yes, that was.
We're used to being on stage, we're like, oh.
I'm all for it. No, that's great. Hey, great to see you both. Thanks so much for having me. It's terrific to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. I mean, first of all, I want to start just talking about your amazing career. I mean, your Wikipedia page is literally filled to the brim with awards. It's absolutely astonishing. I wanted to ask you, because you've also been the first to do a lot of things, especially as a woman covering sports. Can you tell us what it's been like to be such a pioneer? And, what has it been like for you watching this growth and breaking new ground?
Cathryn, it's funny when you're doing something and in the midst of it, you're not necessarily thinking of like the ramifications, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've said in speeches and I've given a lot of advice over the years and mentored a lot of students and young men and women, of course, especially.
Mm.
And, it's like if you're starting to climb a mountain, don't think of like, how high is this mountain? Just start climbing. Right. And you're very kind to say those things. I just found something I love and I've been able to do it for my entire career, my life. And, it's the old line, if you find something you love and that becomes your quote unquote job, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And, there's probably some days I felt like I was working, but in general, gosh, I mean, more than 40 years, which is hard to believe because, I'm still only, 30 years old, but, being growing up at a time when girls were not encouraged to love or play sports and growing up in the suburbs of Toledo, Ohio, most of my friends were boys, in terms of playing sports. So, and back then the organized sports for boys and girls were almost nothing. I think boys had Little League baseball maybe in second grade, but there was no T-ball for girls or boys. There was no soccer, little, orange slices and soccer and 5-6-year-old, none of that. So we just played. We played in the front yard, backyard. We'd go, run off to a field. We'd have bike races around the block and the big kids, giving the little kids a head start and then trying to reel them in. It was unorganized play. And I'm tall. I'm almost 6 feet tall. Like I'm 5'11" and a half. And so
I'm 5'10". That's why I made that sound effect.
Okay. Yeah, I just gotta say, is it an Ohio thing? Because I'm 6 foot and my wife's side, a lot of them are from Ohio, and I'm smaller than everyone, women included, in the family.
So wait a minute, Freddie, your wife is taller than 6 feet?
Sorry, she's not, but her whole father's side, everyone is taller than me. Everyone in Ohio.
It's Ohio.
Everyone in Ohio.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. Is it an Ohio thing? Is everyone huge?
Right. No, it's a great point you're bringing up, and this could be maybe the breaking news of this podcast. We thought there might be a conversation about the WNBA or Caitlyn Clark. No, it's the secret that no one has unearthed until right now about tall people in Ohio. I don't know. That's a good question. My parents were from the south side of Chicago, and my dad was 6 feet tall. My mom was 5'7" and a half, which for someone born in the late 20s, a woman born like that actually was pretty tall. So there might be a little Chicago, a little Toledo in Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I'm playing sports and loving sports, and I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I have two younger sisters and a younger brother, so it wasn't older brothers, encouraging me.
Mm,
Hmm.
It was my love of sports and being coordinated and being, good, decent at it, and the boys wanting to play with me. They didn't wanna play with any of the other girls. They tell the girls to go run off, but for me, like, come on and join them. So there was a very welcoming feeling about sports. I always felt that I belonged and was welcomed into that world, and that's the kids in the neighborhood, a couple of the guys I'm still in touch with to this day. But then my mom and dad, they were well ahead of their time. And, we hear about girl dads now.
mm,
Lots of people, and I say it, all of us say it, that he's a girl dad. He's got a daughter that, he takes to all her soccer,
Yeah.
or, you guys are in Canada, hockey, all of the great things that girls can play like boys, for, now for generations, boys could, now girls could too. Well, back then, and we're talking 60s and 70s, late 60s, 70s, for me, my dad encouraged me to play sports. He, when I couldn't wait till he got home from work, and we would throw the baseball, and he taught me how to throw the ball properly, not like, I hate the term throw like a girl, because of
yeah.
course that's a compliment now, because we're teaching our daughters and our nieces and our granddaughters
Yeah.
to throw the ball properly. But back then it was that weird kind of push thing that girls did, because there was no direction, there was no coaching, there was no guidance. Well, I had direction and coaching and guidance from my dad, and he taught me how to throw the ball properly, and couldn't get enough of playing baseball with my dad. So in many ways, he was my own personal Title IX. Of course, Title IX was the law signed by Richard Nixon in June of 1972 that opened the floodgates for girls and women to play sports in the United States, and really set the example, set the stage for, Olympics, international competition around the world, the kind of the gold standard being the US encouraging, even though it's happened to Canada, of course, Scandinavia, China, so many other countries that have had great
Hmm.
soccer teams. You've had,
Mm.
you can kind of tell based on that, or their Olympic performances, which I'm so honored and lucky to cover the Olympics, and have since '84 in LA, which is crazy to me. But that, I was hoping to go to one as a fan someday, and then all these Olympics that I get to cover.
That's
So
amazing.
I'm appreciative, but it did start again with parents who were open-minded at a time when most parents were telling their daughters, no, you cannot play sports. And my mom and dad were saying, yes, yes, you can. And they opened up a world for me, you guys, the world of my dreams. And for any mom or dad now watching us, for any young girls or boys, and maybe in middle school or going into high school, whatever, the dream. I'm a big believer in dreams, and big believer in going for something, because I've said this many times to people I've spoken with. Like, nothing would have sounded stranger than for a girl growing up in Toledo, Ohio, to say she wanted to be a sports journalist. At that time, I never read a woman's sports byline.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's no internet, so you don't know who's out there, but basically no one was out there at that point as I'm growing up. Never a woman on TV doing sports casting until Phyllis George, back in the '70s on the CBS NFL Today. And Phyllis was a great role model for me, but she'd been Miss America 1971, which is fantastic. But that, being Miss America wasn't necessarily going to be my career path, right?
Yeah, different path, yeah.
Right. But again, Phyllis, I mean, remarkable person, passed away a few years ago. Just absolutely terrific, cheerleader, role model, supporter. I just love Phyllis George in every way. But, the idea being that, like, if I had walked around and said, I want to be an astronaut, I'll bet our neighbors in Ohio would have said, sure, a young woman could be an astronaut. You could walk on the moon someday. But sports journalism, there was no frame of reference. And so I say that because here I was having a dream that there was no path for me, and there was no one to look up to. And yet here I am speaking to you now, all these years and decades, doing what I love and loving it more today than the day I started. And I truly feel that, that is something that I really try to pass along. And it's a part of everything I do, journalistically speaking. Television is just, to make sure that we don't forget the other half of our population when we're talking about, people in sports. It's not, we need to use the adjective men's at the Final Four. You don't just call it the Final Four, you call it the men's Final Four because there's a women's Final Four and you want to
Mhm.
make sure to give them their due. And so many other ways it manifests itself. And so anyway, I'm a very lucky person and very fortunate to have this career of writing and broadcasting and speaking all around the thing I love the most, which is sports.
Wow. Incredible.
Wow. Yeah. Like Christine, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's just, it's so inspiring. And as a dad with a 14-month-old boy, but even still, there's this feeling of like unconditional support and belief and like the power of that. And yeah, hearing about your relationship with your father and just this belief that and that's in response to us asking you about being pioneering. So for you to say like, hey, that was a part of the fabric of who I am, it's really, really moving. And can I also say the it's just profound to hear someone speak about accomplishing something without having that much direct representation. And we know how important representation is.
Mhm.
So for you not to have
Yeah.
those figures and to still be where you are today is it's incredible and inspiring. Like it's moving, honestly.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thanks. I will leave you with on this particular topic with this thought. So I'm sure I was talking to my parents in the kitchen, and I have siblings who are terrific, and obviously they were following their path, and everyone played sports in some way or other. But I'm sure when I would like say I'm going to be a sports journalist, or I want to write books, or I want to, do cover games, and then I'd go to listen to the Detroit Tigers game or Toledo Mud Hens, or I kept score on my baseball scorecard of, not only was probably no girl doing that in America in the 70s, but I dare say very few boys were keeping score off the radio of minor league baseball.
Yeah.
But as I would leave, I'm sure the kitchen, I obviously I wasn't looking back. I'm sure my mom and dad, who were unbelievable people, and again, just gave me the life of my dreams and every ounce of encouragement and go for it. I'm sure though, when I would say this stuff without any any visual, any role models, I mean, who knew who was there doing anything that we didn't know anyone did? I'm sure they probably like, as I laughed, they probably I mean, they kept saying, "Sure, honey, you can do it," but I'm sure in deep down they were kind of like, "What? How would we even begin to, think
Yeah.
that this could be possible?" And
Mm.
I smile and I tell you that story. I have no idea if that was true. I don't know exactly what they felt, except they just, encouraged a child who loved something and wanted something. And again, it's just given me an opportunity to help, I start a scholarship fund with our Association for Women in Sports Media. I was the first president, and we've honored now, I think, and awarded scholarships to well over 200 women, young women in college to become sports journalists. And I fund 2 of those every year in the name of Betty and Jim Brennan, my parents. And so, giving back is huge. And that's always been a tenet of our family and certainly of my career and my life as well.
Yeah. It's so honorable and it's such a cool experience. And the fact that you're this, well-rounded and able to kind of give back and that all that starts from your parents is amazing. I'm sure they're so proud of what you've accomplished, and that's absolutely incredible.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah. They passed away back in 02 and 03, but they were at book signings and book tours, and my dad came to the Olympics in Atlanta and many, many, many opportunities. I shared so much of it with them, and just watching like Good Morning America from the Salt Lake Olympics with
Wow.
My mom, as I was on almost every day with Robin Roberts talking about the
Mhm.
Paris figure skating scandal. I know you guys are Canadians, with Jamie Soleil, David Peltier, and
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, I broke that story. I do a lot of coverage of figure skating, a lot of coverage of the Olympics, of course. And so, so there's a lot of things that give me, I'm sure for anyone who's watching, who's, lost a parent, lost a loved one. I mean, obviously that happens, in the course of our lives. And
Mhm.
yeah, the joy I have, even talking about them right now, it's like, I know we've got many other things to discuss, but it's just something that it's like, yeah, and dedicating books to them and writing. I know we're going to talk about Caitlyn Clark, but my book, Best Seat in the House, is my father-daughter memoir. And it's came out in '06, but it's basically evergreen. And I'm not,
Mm.
trying to, sell copies or anything, but it by any means, and that was never my goal in talking about it. But it is really, I think it's the only father-daughter memoir written by a sports journalist to this day. And it has, in fact, now you don't have to read chapter 3 or 4 because I just talked all about it. So that's
I mean, still read it.
No, we'll
though,
still read
yeah,
chapters
still
3
read
and
it.
4.
you can flip quickly through there and then move on. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, it gives me great joy. And I, it's, again, we don't need to get too deep into this, but I think it is really something that drives me, and just how people that, obviously are your parents, but also then create every path and avenue for you. And even when, my dad said, why don't you, start writing books, and I was like in college or something. I think, Dad, what would I write a book about? And obviously, who would have known back then that in another 20 years there'd be a girl born in Iowa, who I might write a book about in 2024 and 2025.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I love, those kind of little moments. So anyway, yeah, they're pretty incredible people, but so many parents out there are, and I meet them in dealing with young athletes and Olympic athletes, and it's really cool. So I love that. And it is obviously a huge part of anyone's life, but the support of parents, especially for girls in sports, which wasn't happening a couple generations ago. That is one of the more remarkable things, not just in the US in sports, but in our culture. I mean, it is literally shaping and changing the United States and the world.
Yeah, it's the parenthood is so powerful. Obviously, I got some recency bias there, but it's it's such a beautiful part of my life right now. So I'm understanding things through that lens, and I imagined I could, but it's definitely a different side of things. But Christine, we got to talk about this book. So you have a huge book coming up, and you brought it up. It's On Her Game, Caitlyn Clark and the Revolution of Women's Sports, and obviously this is the sports story. Or has been for I guess over a year and a half now, longer. I'm sure you please jump in and correct me, but I think one of my first curiosities in knowing that we were going to speak to you is just wondering, there's so much conversation about Caitlyn Clark, right? There's so many different types of conversation, and I'm curious if there's something that you'd like to share with us that you feel like the public, I don't want to say it's missing, but something that the public might not know or understand about Caitlyn Clark, the person.
Yeah, for sure. And just a little background. A year ago right now, if you talked to me, the idea of writing a book and having it be out a year later now, I would have been like, what are you even talking about? I'd written a few columns on Caitlyn Clark because you just could not avoid this story.
Of course,
I broke, we're almost at the exact year anniversary of in fact, it's a chapter title, Olympic Snub, where Caitlyn Clark was not put on the US Olympic basketball team, which I think is one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in the Olympic world. And I've covered it for a long time, as I've referred to before. And I wrote that column, I broke that story, broke the story on the charter flights, that the players were going to get charter flights. And that was in early May of 2024.
Yeah.
Then June of 2024 was that. And I really was never even thinking about a book until I got home from the Olympic swimming trials, which were in Indianapolis, and covered a couple of fever games while I was there. So if they don't put the US Olympic swimming trials in Indy, I might not have even, I wouldn't have been at those fever games and wouldn't have even probably thought of a book. And so then Scribner, my publisher, basically with one phone call, like, here's an offer, do it. No book proposal, nothing. I've never seen anything like that. Rick Horgan, my editor, we just did this in mid-July, went to the Olympics. A tough assignment, you guys. Somebody had to do it. Had to go to Paris for a month.
Yeah, someone had to go to Paris. Yeah,
that's rough.
It was tough. I know. I got a lot of sympathy at how hard I worked.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
tough stuff.
it was just hardship every moment. And anyway, come back. And then after a few days here back in DC, I go to Indy and then start being in all the press conferences, covering all the games, I've got access to practices and some, other, obviously being around the Fever, coaches, general manager, president of the club, the whole thing, and asking Caitlyn, dozens of questions, and she answered every single one. And I think, and then the playoffs, and then basically had to buckle down and then write a book in just a few months, and did.
Wow.
And of course, now here we are. And I say that just because I want to make it clear that I really didn't know her. I never covered her at Iowa. In the book, I have a lot about Iowa. I go back and tell those stories and the magic of her performance. And the Caitlyn Clark magic is a big in this book. And there's also a lot of breaking news and a lot of those stories and issues that are out there. I cover them all. I don't avoid any topic. You asked a very good question about, something about Caitlyn, because we do think we know her, right? I mean, I thought, she's just so famous. I think she's not just one of the most, if not the most famous athletes in the United States. I think she's one of the most famous people in the United States.
Certainly. Yeah.
And I know you guys, again, are in Toronto. I'm going to guess we could probably throw North America in on that,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what everyone, like me and Kate, or me and Cathryn always talk about. That's what people ask us about when they know that this is what we do.
Yeah.
Right? It's the first thing they say.
Well, and again, with the franchise coming there, it's And then even around the world, I went in Paris at the Olympics when people are like, why isn't Caitlyn Clark here? And of course, I'm the journalist. I have nothing to do with the decision. But I would say this, well, I'd be talking to someone from Brazil who was like, I wanted to cover, I was going to go to the US Games and cover Caitlyn. So a Brazilian journalist, a British journalist, like, explain this phenomenon to me, and then I'll cover at the Olympics. Well, there's no Caitlyn at the Olympics. So huge missed opportunity. And I've got other news in the book on that. I continue to report that beyond what I broke that day in June. So that'll be in the book. But your question about her, this probably isn't shocking, but I'm going to speak as a journalist asking questions of an athlete. I've done that a lot in 1981. So 44 years, right? I've interviewed a lot of athletes, young athletes, veteran athletes, people would say good guys, bad guys, quote unquote, whatever, people that want to talk, people that don't want to talk, that kind of say a few words and leave, or, whatever, which is their right, is that, totally. Just do whatever. And I'm not sure that I've ever met anyone quite like Caitlyn Clark. She takes a question, you ask her, she's looking you in the eye, which of course, that other athletes do that. And she's listening intently, and she is so respectful. And then she uncorks an answer. And this answer, you guys, can be a minute, could be, maybe the minimum would be like 45 seconds, which is still pretty long. Sometimes she'll go off then on a tangent that is her doing. In other words, like, she'll start talking about something else that is related. She is forthcoming. She's kind. She's very funny. And her teammates talk about that a lot. And I saw a lot of that in practice. She can just be really goofy and in a great way, a team bonding, building way. And her teammates love her. Fans love her, of course. I think people have seen some of that fun and silliness and goofiness, in the omnipresent Instagram stories and images and other TikTok and everything else that's out there. But for me, again, as a journalist, the idea of someone who is so respectful of your question and so respectful of anyone else's question, and takes them and answers the same question, you guys, over and over again.
Yeah.
And in the midst of controversy, in the midst of some serious controversy, the Kennedy Carter hip check. Kennedy Carter hip check Caitlyn Clark into one of the biggest national conversations of the year in sports and in our culture. And I wasn't covering that game. I wasn't yet doing the book, but
right.
It's like the way she handled herself. It just, and as I say in the book, at the time she's 22, now she's 23, but 22 going on 40 or 50. I mean, it's just the maturity of someone that would be twice her age. I'm not sure I've seen many pro athletes even being close to as mature, as calm, as collected, as kind, as interested, in the banter back and forth with certain journalists. I don't know that I've
Hmm.
ever experienced that quite like that. And I've interviewed some great people. I mean, they're terrific people. Wayne Gretzky, I spent time covering hockey, and he was great. Michelle Kwan, the Olympic figure skater, terrific. Brian Boitano and Brian Orser, the Battle of the Bryans. If we're talking Canada and the U.S., great people. So many are. Jackie Joyner Kersey, terrific. On and on it goes. I can, we spend the rest of, the next 12 hours talking about it. I'm not going to do that. People are going, oh no, this is 12 hours long. What's going on?
It is. We're just getting
Yeah,
started.
it's a marathon. It's a marathon.
Buckle up, people. Get some food. Right.
It's a waiting for Godot marathon. It's going to be good.
We're going to talk right into the next podcast. But that's how she is. And the other thing is, if she's angry at a question or if she doesn't like a question, here's the amazing part, to me anyway. You have no idea. You have no idea if she liked it, didn't like it, because she'll answer and treat it every question the same. And that is just so rare. As I said, I've interviewed thousands and thousands of people. I don't know. Have I interviewed 10,000 people? I don't know. 15,000. I have no idea. I guess we could kind of figure it out. And she is, and I came at it without really knowing her. I just watching like on TV because I wasn't in those Iowa games. And so that to me, I think is the thing that just kept hitting me. It's consistent day in, day out, because I was there every game, most of the practices once I had a book deal and was rolling on that. And it truly, often you'll get an athlete who has a bad day or an athlete who just has had it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe she will do that or has done that, but not when I was around. And just the respect she shows for the media and for others is truly extraordinary, and is you would hope that anyone would feel the same about whether media or just other people. The way she treats everyone, it's truly real. It's remarkable, notable. And it's something you just can't immediately you see it. And it's truly something that I'm guessing a lot of our fans would expect that. But I kind of have gone into this because I do have a frame of reference and I can compare to so many other athletes I've dealt with over the
Do you think?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to suggest a quick follow up. Like, do you think it's a part of her greatness? Like, is it an expectation of like, I was always going to be here? I'm ready for this. You're not gonna bother me with a negative question or idea, and like I'm calm in this space because I'm meant to be here. Like I don't know if that seems too much of like a destiny type insinuation, but do you know what I mean? Like, because
no, I do. I mean, it's right. It's I mean, her. I've said this many times. I mean, I have this theme throughout the book, but she's a basketball player, yes, but she's an entertainer. I mean, I covered Tiger Woods the length of his career. And to me, the closest I can come in terms of making a comparison, obviously Tiger's career was very long. Right now, Caitlyn is just starting. So I would never yet make that comparison in terms of the length and breadth of a career.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, unless she moves to golf after she retires.
Which maybe she could. Yeah.
She's good, and they love her. They believe me, any sport would love her because of the eyeballs, the fans, the clicks, interest. I mean, she's just an absolute attention magnet. It's and changing the face of a sport, by just showing up, and the WNBA and the new heights and the records and TV ratings. It's her. It's all her. Mm-hmm. And it's remarkable. And of course, but there's also been friction and concern. I deal with all of that and some of the issues that have come up. But I think that she was raised by her parents, older brother, younger brother, raised with respect for others, certainly. I think raised clearly, raised as a respectful, caring person. And, that comes through. I think clearly you can, if you see someone behave and act in a certain way and you say, well, we talked earlier about my parents, look at the parents, look at how they were raised. I spent time talking to her high school coach, her AAU coach. They're both in the book extensively. Kristen Myers, the high school coach, Dowling Catholic High School in Des Moines, West Des Moines, and then Dixon Jensen, the AAU coach, all Iowa Attack AAU team based in Ames, but traveling the country at AAU tournaments. And, they talk about her and such glowing terms. But also I will say this, she's very competitive. And as anyone knows who's watched her, she does get angry, and she occasionally gets technical fouls, and certainly, has her moments. And I deal with that too. And having people talk about that fiery personality, I think people love that about her. I really do. They really are attracted to that, as long as she doesn't, I mean, obviously, if doesn't have to fall out of a game or get tossed or lose a game because of technical fouls, which she got close, but she didn't last year. And when I asked her about that, again, the honesty comes through, and the humanity. I think we're talking about it, just someone who's, you're talking to someone and they're just giving you what, at least I believe to be honest answers. When I said, and I think it's on Instagram somewhere, but also it's in the book about, when she got a technical call and what was going on in your brain. And she goes, oh, too much. So here she is, because her critics, and some might be watching
It's a
this.
pretty funny answer, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
But the self-awareness, you guys, of a 22-year-old to just be able to say that in her rookie season, as the scrutiny and the eyeballs and the spotlight is on her. And not everyone loves Caitlyn Clark, right? I mean, by far, people, most of the sports fans and people, we see the TV ratings, people can't get enough of her. But there's obviously people who don't like her. And for her to be able to just cut through that and be honest and actually be a critic of her own behavior, or aware of her own behavior, analyzing her own behavior. Again, the maturity of a 22-year-old. And so all of that. And by the way, I deal with a lot of that, let's call it the behavior issues. I talked to her high school coach about that, talked to her AAU coach about that. The pressure that was on her last season and now this season, even though right now she's injured. It's just remarkable, and how she's handled that and her honesty about that. So kind of, again, keeping in the very long answer I gave you about what it is that I think is just remarkable. But the idea that she just takes on any question, doesn't seem phased, could be negative, could be positive, doesn't, roll her eyes, doesn't, say I'm not talking, all those things that we've seen a lot of athletes do. Tiger did throughout his career, at a much older age than Caitlyn, or at least older. And then, obviously Tiger's much older now, but Tiger, he didn't want to talk, and he didn't want to, no. Caitlyn, and every autograph that Caitlyn signs, Tiger didn't want to sign autographs, just kept that laser focus, which is great. That's his choice. Free country, he can do what he wants. But in the process, there's no coattails for Tiger in terms of young Black men getting into golf. I mean, there are a few, but nowhere near what people predicted 25 years ago with Tiger, because he didn't seem to really spend a lot of time worrying about that or thinking about that. Caitlyn, on the other hand, signing all these autographs, going 12 minutes before the Washington game a week ago in Baltimore, where she was not playing, 12 minutes of autograph signing, but she'll do it before a game when she is playing, make sure to get all the kids. Well, those kids are all going to go home and try to chuck it from the parking lot, right? And, and try to hit threes from the next county. And they're going to those girls are going to be inspired in a way that who knows what that's going to look like in 15, 20 years, because Caitlyn cares and really is, about giving back. And as are so many other WNBA players, because these athletes understand that they want to build something and have it grow. And I'm not picking on Tiger, but men's golf, it was already established, just a very different feeling. If you want to compare two prodigies,
right.
Young athletes who are also entertainers, who had people who never followed the sport come running to the TV set. That's Tiger, and that is absolutely Caitlyn Clark.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a great and very apt comparison. And I mean, obviously, there's no doubt how much Caitlyn has grown the game. And, we cover, the whole WNBA from a fan perspective. And one of the big sort of stories this season is going to be this new CBA agreement coming up that they're going to start negotiating in the fall. Obviously, like their current CBA was negotiated in 2020. A lot has changed in this sport since 2020. I feel like this is going to be probably a historic negotiation in large part due to Caitlyn's presence. What do you anticipate coming out of this, and what do you think might be the main takeaways from that?
No, great question, great point. It's going to be we're all watching it for sure.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What I don't think, occasionally you hear little whispers about either like a work stoppage or a lockout or something, I mean, it's just out there. It's not, no one, I don't think, is giving credence to it at this point, but
Right.
that cannot happen. I mean, that just cannot happen. You cannot, at this moment, as everything's rising, eyeballs rising, TV ratings, obviously it's all driven, by this incredible love of Caitlyn Clark, who, by the way, and this is something I say throughout the book, and I'll say people get sick of hearing about it on the book tour, but that literally because of Caitlyn and the interest in Caitlyn, so many players who should have gotten recognition, especially, the Black players, 74% Black in mixed race league,
Hmm.
and they didn't, and they haven't. And I've fought, and so many people have fought for coverage in, the male dominated mainstream sports media basically ignored the WNBA for so many years,
Hmm.
or just gave it just very, very minimal coverage.
Yeah.
Well, because of Caitlyn Clark, the eyeballs are now there. The TV ratings are now there. People who couldn't have cared less are now watching it. And they're also watching Asia Wilson. And, they're watching Kelsey Mitchell. And they're falling in love with Aaliyah Boston. This is a positive development, right? So at this moment, if anyone is out there whispering, well, yes, and I've heard, again, nothing, no breaking news, nothing definitive, but like someone might heard someone say, I'm not going to even say who, but like, oh, we might have to, have a work stoppage or something. Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. You cannot do that. If the NFL does that, I covered those in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFL is the NFL, Major League Baseball. This is your moment, WNBA. And so they need to, of course, have an agreement. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The salaries are woefully low. I mean, just ridiculously low. And when Caitlyn, I was just wrote it down to make sure I got it exactly. Her base salary was $76,535
Yeah.
the rookie season. In the NBA for the top draft picks, it was, well, basically in 55 million, 57 million. So think about that. Just,
Hmm.
it's awful. But people came to understand that again, because Caitlyn Clark takes us to all these conversations. So I remember after she was drafted, I'm now doing, TV interviews and whatever, and people are outraged, right, about that salary figure,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they
We,
should be.
we covered it. People wanted to hear from us about it, right?
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just like, what on earth? Well, it was the first time anyone paid any attention. I wish I've covered the WNBA since 99, Lifetime TV, way back in the day as a side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But so we, those of us who've been around a long, of course you wanted people to care, but you also can't just drag people to, reading story. I mean, I don't know what you do. People didn't care. And so then all of a sudden it's like, well, why on earth is this happening? And one of my lines that I used, Brittany Griner wrote columns about her, that it was the
Right.
finest hour ever for a WNBA, any league, any pro league, when those players worked so hard to get Brittany Griner back from
Yep.
imprisonment in Vladimir Putin's Russia. Incredible. The WNBA did it. Brittany's family did it. And it was just an amazing success story.
Yeah.
Well, why was Brittany Griner going to Russia? It wasn't to hang out in Vladimir Putin's country and, the weather and
Yeah.
the
She was going to play.
Yeah.
exactly,
And money.
because her salary is basically what, $250,000 bucks. There can be bonuses and things, whatever. But let's say Brittany Griner was making 250,000 or whatever it was, right around that. Well, I mean, so people hear that, and that's the good news. People are now aware. When I say people, fans, general, whatever.
Yeah,
People,
absolutely. I mean, because
that's
like
good.
Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, like they all played in Russia for years, and that's
Yep.
where they made so much
And
of their money.
Turkey and
Right.
Yeah.
Spain, obviously China.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and that's even this year. Many people, obviously went overseas, and so I think it's important that people understand why. And the why is because the salaries are so low, and if an oligarch in Russia is willing to pay you $1 million, okay, well all of a sudden now, now we're talking. There's some significant money for these pro athletes who are the best in the world at what they do, and they were undervalued and ignored, again, by the male-dominated mainstream sports media that I've been a part of for obviously all these years. It just
Mhm.
pathetic. And so anyway, I think certainly salaries going up. How high? We'll see. We'll see. The TV deal has gone up fourfold. So certainly there's more money there.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons they got the charter flights, because of revenue that was coming in and anticipated
Yeah.
in the future. So there's going to be that. I would expect to see much more also of lifestyle issues, all the things that are now part of, for example, the Indiana Fever and others building these facilities that are catered understandably to female athletes, to
Yeah.
potential future moms, to all, for all the
Mm.
reasons, all the things that female athletes may need that are a bit different than male athletes. I think we're going to see much more of that. I think we're going to see people much more outspoken, leadership, well, certainly on the side of the players, for fighting for those issues, because now they have a foundation to stand on. They
Yeah.
should have had one for years. It's a great product, but now they've got people watching and caring, and people who are on the side of giving these players more money. So they should be able to pull that off. The flip side, of course, the WNBA is owned still, it's close to 60% ownership is the NBA. So you've got NBA owners. I don't know exactly what all the financials are of the WNBA, but certainly there have been reports it's still losing money. So we're going to see a push-pull as we do on every kind of contract negotiation in sports and probably outside of sports, about what the owners are going to say that they have and don't have, and what the fans or what the players are going to say they need. The difference is the fans now are a part of it. We're going to see
Yes. Yeah.
journalists, we're going to see media people who are a part
Mm.
of it, who care, again, because of Caitlyn Clark. And that's a great thing, because there will be eyes on this as never before. You mentioned other, CBAs. I mean, no one knew. I mean, you had, I'm sure, beat writers covering it, but in general. So
Yeah.
because there's so much attention on this, the players should have the upper hand, I would think, in terms of PR, in terms of fan support, and in terms of media clamoring for higher salaries and other perks and other things that are part of one's life, and the opportunity to have a full, well-rounded life as a young woman, as well as of course, a professional basketball player.
Yeah, well said. I mean, where do you think this league is gonna be in 5 years?
Well, I hope it continues to rise.
Mm.
I think what we've seen in Indiana, and what I saw firsthand in Indiana, um, is a model that one would think could be emulated in other cities, especially the newer cities like Toronto. Certainly, Golden State is off to a
Yeah.
great start. New York Liberty, they got it. They've aced it.
Yeah.
They've got the fan base. Minnesota, they sold out because Caitlyn was in, but Minnesota Lynx that's a great fan base. That's a great organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going
The Aces, I think, got to be up there, right? Like,
Absolutely. And, so I think I mentioned facilities a few minutes ago. So you have to all these teams have to up their game on their facilities. Indiana Fever now is building a brand new, beautiful facility. Chicago is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because they're
yeah.
in Wintrust, which is South Loop. I went to Northwestern. I know Chicago well. Okay, it's a fine facility. It's 11,000, I think, and that's actually okay. That's a decent size. But then I've never been to their practice facility, but I've certainly read and heard about it.
It's like an hour away or something,
Yeah,
right? And it's like a community center?
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And again, I've
Yeah.
not seen it. So
And same with Connecticut, which is now apparently on sale.
right. And I was
Yeah,
at that
who
now
knows?
for the playoffs. I mean, there's a perfect example that you mentioned, Catherine, that so game before game one, there were just the 2 games of the Connecticut Indiana series,
Yeah.
playoff series. And before game one, which was on a Sunday afternoon, Saturday, they had the open practice. And so I flew up for that and went to that practice. And it was in it was in like a gym that would look like almost any gym where you might even have pickup games going on or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I had missed it, so I was watching the Fever practice because obviously my focus has been on the Fever and Caitlyn Clark, obviously. But because that was my contract to write a book about her. I know, some people are
Yeah,
like,
of course.
that's kind of what you do when you're writing a book.
It's what you're doing,
Yeah, and dozens of sports writers have done it on various topics and other sports, right? So anyway, but there was the practice beforehand that I did not go to, but it was the Connecticut Sun practice. And as I understand it, it was it was a birthday party or something was going on, and they had
Yeah, it went a bit viral. They were sharing the space with another group.
and the group was not like another WNBA team. It was a social. It was a party. I think it was a kid's birthday party. I could be wrong. Obviously, I'll stand corrected, but that was the gist of it. It's unbelievable.
Could you imagine being that kid's birthday party and being like, is that Caitlyn Clark over there? Like that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Well, exactly. But it was actually the Sun practice. By the time the
Sun
practice,
yeah.
It was, So, but still, it's absolutely awful. I mean, this is how you're treating professional athletes. This is how you're treating the Connecticut Sun. I mean, that's just absolutely terrible. Mm-hmm. So those are the kinds of things. But the Indiana Fever were so ready for Caitlyn Clark. Right. Merchandise was in. You could buy this T-shirt, number 22 T-shirts and jerseys. They were restocked all the time. And you had a great relationship with Pacers Sports and Entertainment is the name of the company.
Right.
With the Pacers and the Fever. It was like one and the same. So the Fever had the entire arsenal of an NBA team, which is also, obviously, it's both teams together, ready to go in a city it's the perfect size, not too big, but not too small, Indianapolis and the surrounding area. And of course,
and it's just a historic basketball city too, exactly. I feel, with Indiana.
Basketball. They, Olympic sports. I've been to Indy so many times to cover Olympic trials. Carl Lewis, Florence Griffith Joyner at the 88 track and field trials, swimming trials galore, with Janet Evans and Michael Phelps. And I mean, on and on it goes, all in Indianapolis. So a perfect setting. Well, I know there'll be people out there that are mad at me like, well, Indianapolis, why would you pick, why not say some others? New York, again, we already said they're great. The Liberties, New York City, they're, great fan base, great crowds. Obviously, it's New York, and they do a great job there. Las Vegas, as we said, certainly there have been others that have done it. Minnesota, as I said, I think has done a really good job. And I'm not excluding others. I'm just saying those are a few that have done well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have bigger arenas or have arenas where you can then have the opportunity to have more crowds. And of course, the opposite just happened here in Washington. 2019, the Mystics moved out of the Capital One Arena, 20,000 seat arena, into a 4,200 seat beautiful bandbox. I mean, fabulous, perfect. I mean, just great size, loud, interesting. I covered the WNBA final game, one of their games back then in that arena. That's great. But 4,200 seats was seen as a good size back in 2019. It's almost now. And of course, they've moved the Caitlyn Clark games to big area arenas, either Capital One or in Baltimore. As Capital One is being renovated now. So the point is, you've got to be prepared, as all of these leagues is asking me about the 5 years. You've got to have room to grow. You've got to have these terrific athletes getting the stage they deserve. The TV, I think more games need to be available.
Yes.
The WNBA season pass. Oh, great. I've got it. Some of these streaming games. Another thing I would say is it's local. Obviously, you're going to have local announcers often on the local games, and they're being streamed. But there's now a national audience for some of these games. Yeah. So I would, nothing against any of the local announcers. I know some of them. I may have mentored some of them along the way, or at least, supported them. I'm all for them. But you're going to have to think bigger. You're going to have to think, we're just not doing. I'm just going to pick. I'm not complaining. We're not going to pick the Dallas, Atlanta we're not just talking to Dallas fans, we're talking to or Atlanta fans. We are talking to the nation. The nation, the eyeballs are on us as never before. And so I think a much more national view, being prepared for it to take off, understanding that the Caitlyn Clark phenomenon is unique, and that's okay. And take those eyeballs and take that spotlight and let others shine, and have great stars coming into the league, and ride the college experience. The TV ratings in college are way bigger than the TV ratings for the WNBA. That's because you have all these alums from colleges that want to watch, and you've got 4 years of college, and of course the TV contracts and everything about that. Campus stadiums that are big and full, like in Iowa, and
Mhm.
country. So you build off the college experience and have these superstars from college, give them the stage and the forum to shine and to bring more fans in. So lots of little ideas there, but hopefully we'll just see that continued growth for the league so that they can be role models for more girls wanting to play sports. I mean, that's the goal. And that's certainly something that Caitlyn Clark talks about. And so many other people talk about these great players in the WNBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like there's so much, there's such a sense of momentum and keeping these like many balls in the air is really, really important. Like, just as far as like all the different avenues for growth, like the time is now. And I think it's obviously in the league's power, but they still have to sort of like do it right. In the way that you said Indiana was ready for Caitlyn. I think the league, needs to be ready for this growth, and they need to sort of make sure they capitalize it on as much as possible. One question we always like to do like a Freddie's fun question, sort of a silly question at the end. Kind of a running joke me and Cathryn have had is that the Commissioner's Cup, the WNBA, in-season tournament, obviously very popular in Europe, right? Like with international soccer, there's all these kind of like different tournaments, like in the Premiership and in the La Liga, and like all that sort of thing. But now the WNBA has been trying it, and the NBA is also trying it with some success, I would say, but really not enough. And so me and Cathryn have kind of made fun of it. Obviously, there was the Kelsey Plum moment with the very tiny trophy, which Commissioner Engelbert had a great sense of humor about. But
And then
so
gave her an even tinier trophy, which was
gave her an even
great.
tinier
Yeah.
trophy, which is a great yes and to the joke. We love that here. But yeah, so we're curious if you have any kind of real ideas or silly ideas about like how to spice up the Commissioner's Cup.
Yeah, it's a great point, because I think it's relatively new, and yeah, I mean the WNBA, the interest, as we've talked about now, like a lot, as I've talked about, the interest should have been there 5 years ago, but it wasn't. So people are new to it, and then it's like, okay, now what's this little in-season thing that's going on? That maybe not little,
Exactly.
but right. Your point is well taken. And
Mhm.
there's some sports that lend itself maybe to it more than others. I mentioned college campuses, college athletes, right? And like you ride the wave of the interest. I mean, that's Caitlyn, right? When you've got 4 million more fans, more viewers, 4 million more viewers watching the women's final game, which was Caitlyn Clark in Iowa against Dawn Staley's South Carolina team in 2024. 4 million more watched that than the next day when the men's final, which is a sentence I
Yeah.
never, ever, ever utter, that the women had 4 million more viewers than the men for the NCAA final. Okay, how do you build on that? Maybe you move some of these games to college campuses, like, and the Fever
That would be fun.
with that Iowa, went back to Iowa for the Fever Brazil game, and Caitlyn was
Yeah.
played out of her mind, right? Starting out, and the incredible shots, incredible
Yeah.
threes, and the crowd was there, and it was great. So maybe now I could see the pushback as I'm giving you this idea. I'm also could see the pushback. Well, the owners of the franchises, wait a minute, we're going to give up.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. So we're going to say, well, let's just, again, since we're talking obviously about, you're talking to me because I've got a book coming out, so the Indiana Fever say, sure, we'll just go ahead and we'll move a game. We'll play one in Iowa again, or we'll just go and play in Aaliyah Boston's, South Carolina, and go play there. great idea. I think it would actually make it much more interesting. I think people would watch. I think the TV ratings would be really good. But name an owner in the WNBA that just wants to give up that payday.
Right.
No, maybe there's a way to share it, and you can figure out all of that. So we'll let those financial minds figure that out. But I think you would have a ton more interest because you bring those superstars back to their college campus, the way that they did with that exhibition, preseason game with Caitlyn Clark in Iowa against Brazil. So I think there's something there. Another thought.
Very fun.
Yeah, I think that people love it. And then, of course, you got the fan base is ready and willing, the college fan base. And you could do that at UConn. You could do it at Stanford. You could do it, probably at USC, get Juju Watkins into the WNBA and then go back to Southern Cal, Ohio State. There's a lot of places that would be very supportive, obviously, of the women's game. Tennessee, for sure, et cetera. So I think that's one. I was trying to think if there's a way to, fantasy leagues and fantasy points and whatever. That's a newsflash. That's a really big deal. I don't know if you guys have heard.
We have a fantasy league with some of our listeners.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I was kind of teasing, like newsflash, like, yes, that you may have heard of it, right? And I'm not in that because I'm a journalist and I don't.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not involved, but I'm certainly aware of it. Is there a way, and I kind of
Mm-hmm.
this in the form of a question because I'm not sure, but is there a way to incorporate that in some way so that maybe there's a weighted point thing? So yes, winning and losing is everything. And because it's the league and it's also the season. So you've got to have some consistency from the Commissioner's Cup before and after.
Yeah.
Right. But is there some way to factor in some kind of bonus points that would help move a team above another team, say with performance by key players or some kind of fantasy? I'll leave that to the great.
Oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Like if let's say, the Indiana Fever win the Commissioner Cup, then every Indiana Fever player drafted on your respective fantasy teams get an extra bump or something. That would be interesting.
Right.
I feel like
That'd be cool, like sort of with ESPN or with Yahoo or something. There's some sort of just kind of fun partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I want to see real stakes added to the Commissioner's Cup, where it's if you win the Commissioner's Cup, you're guaranteed home court advantage throughout the playoffs or something like that. I feel like that for me as a fan would get me more excited because I feel like the thing with the Commissioner's Cup is it's too exhibition-y for me personally. I like the idea they've improved the trophy, I like the idea of it, but I feel I feel this way about the NBA as well. It lacks higher stakes for I want it to impact the season.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know if they'll ever do that or not, but that's how I see it. Freddie, I don't know if you have any fun ideas or silly ideas. My silly ideas halftime, I just want to see any of the players' babies race across the court. I love when babies are racing. That's my silly idea.
Honestly, I guess very much in dad mode right now. If you're telling me there's baby races, I'm all the way in.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you in Toronto next year with how old is your little one?
He's 14 months.
Oh, perfect age for next year.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're there. Yeah.
I'm signing him up. I also love like stakes. The college thing's really interesting to me too, because I think one thing that kind of worked with the NBA for the first year, sort of, well, they put a lot of marketing into it, and had a lot of big commercials and stuff. But that's obviously they have the resources and money. But they did the kind of different court design, which it got fans talking in a different way. And one thing I really like about the college idea is that you have a fully different venue. So it's just kind of it's completely unique. So even if it is a part of the regular season and it's just another game, it's not just another game. And the NHL does that with outdoor games, right? They have these big outdoor games, and it's just another game, and it just counts.
An outdoor game would be really cool.
Yeah, that might be harder for basketball, because if it's drafty or whatever. But I think a change of venue is really
they play soccer outside. I don't know.
Yeah,
In Iowa, and I actually have a picture in the book about they played it at their football stadium, Kinnick Stadium, and it was like, I forget exactly, but it was,
Oh,
gusty
that's
winds,
right.
and it was the largest crowd ever in women's basketball history, over
Yeah.
50,000. And but Caitlyn Clark it was an exhibition, so it was not, didn't count in the season against DePaul, but and Caitlyn Clark had a triple double with the wind gusts, and I mean the crowd is just, it's just a spectacle, right? And of
Yeah.
course, something like that, now you have to hope that it doesn't rain. I mean, so there's a bit of that to deal with.
Yes.
But the conditions and the elements would affect both teams. So and
Yeah.
anyone watching would know that there's a wind gusts of 25 miles per hour. So if a shot goes in, it's like, I mean, or if it doesn't, I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it just can't take place in Seattle. You know what I mean? It's like Seattle, if you're there, it's a road game. We're sorry about it.
Yeah.
Like it just needs to be in
No rain.
LA or somewhere where it's not going to rain.
I will say, having
And
covered
not the desert because it'll be too hot.
no, and not too hot like in Dallas or even DC sometimes at this time of year.
Yeah.
But I will say, sometimes covering sports as I have all these years, sometimes it just takes a few years for things to catch hold. So it may well be just on its own momentum.
Yeah.
It'll get
Right.
bigger every year. I mean,
Yeah.
it will. And, there'll be some incredible shot, as always there is. And then it will be like, wow, there was real tension in that game to
Yeah.
win the President's Cup. Those things take a few years, and it has happened throughout sports where some innovation is started. We're not panning it. We're not saying it's terrible, but it, kind of gets a slow start and then it catches fire. I think of a lot of the schools joining the Big Ten, when you've got the Big Ten and then 11, and then you've got, you got Nebraska, you got Maryland, now you got the UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon, like so many people hate that. Well, wait till, and there probably already has happened, some incredible game in some sport. It doesn't even have to be football or basketball, men's or women's, but something happens in a rivalry situation. And now all of a sudden people care about, I'll just say, the Minnesota Maryland game. I'm just making that up. Sometimes things take a while. And so I wouldn't be surprised. This will catch on as the WNBA continues to be, gain fans and gain interest. I think it will. I liked your idea about the potential like home court advantage then for the playoffs. Although that was always very interesting in the Major League Baseball All-Star game, because but the All-Star game, and there was a lot of controversy because people said like, no, that's not fair. An All-Star game, an exhibition game now is determining who's home, what America gets the World Series. But the difference there is that truly was an exhibition, a very important game I used to love watching every second of, as a girl growing up with my siblings, watching the All-Star game. But that was an exhibition. But your point's well taken. These are real games. And so if you do well in these real games, well, then there's some benefit. I could see there's something, again, though, that would then play out of what the seeding is in the playoffs. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of options, and I'm sure everyone will listen to every word we say and say, oh yeah, sure.
Every episode we tell Kathy Engelbert to call us. We're like,
Yeah.
hey Kathy, call us.
So-
We got ideas.
Engelbert, we know you're listening. Give us a call. We got Christine Brennan this time, so like we're getting more legitimate. So we're waiting for that call.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm positive or negative on that front these days, but no, I'm teasing. But yes, I do think that these are kind of the fun things that, again, you guys, this wasn't happening with the WNBA, where people like you are having a podcast discussing these issues. It just wasn't happening. It should have been happening 10, 15 years ago. Absolutely should have. But it's happening now. And that's pretty cool. Even little fun conversations like we're having. I think it's a sign of progress, and that there's people caring about things that people never cared about.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible to be a part of. Like we started this podcast in 2020, and it's just the timing has felt pretty electric for both of us. And we feel that momentum, and we feel the all the things you're speaking of, and I'll speak for myself. I'm like happy to be a part of it. Really, it's been exciting, and so many people have worked hard to get us where we are. And honestly, having you on this podcast is such an honor. So thank you.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thanks. My pleasure. I love the conversation. Thanks for talking about the book. And On Her Game, I would be remiss as an author, right? If I
Of
didn't do,
course.
I mean, of course.
Please.
Yeah. And my
Please, give it the
apologies.
super plug.
Because I kind of hate, I mean, you kind of like, oh, I get gross. Like, I'm doing this. Okay, I'm doing it. But I know I'm doing it, and apologies. But yeah, On Her Game, Caitlyn Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports is coming out on, officially July 8th, but people can pre-order it now from your local bookstore, from any of the places that you go online, Amazon, or any of the places to, as we know, exist out there to order it. And I'm going to try to figure out, I could be making a huge mistake of a way like to have like nameplate, book plates, and have people, I mean, I'm going to be doing a big book tour, but to have people like maybe even be able to get in touch with me via direct message on Twitter, and I'd be happy to sign and send it off to their, for their daughter or whatever. So I may or may not do that, but I'll be on a book tour, Indy, 4, 5, 6 books, book signings there, Indianapolis and the surrounding area, Iowa, 14th, 15th, 16th of July. Kicking everything off in my hometown of Toledo, July 9th, the day after the book is officially launched, and a lot of TV. Good Morning America, People Magazine will have a excerpt. I'll be doing CNN, all kinds of things. So I'll be talking about this. People may get sick of me. Hopefully not, but I think you'll love the book. And it's journalism, lots of breaking news, lots of behind the scenes, and also lots of magical 3-pointers by Caitlyn Clark, and some heartwarming stories. Erica Wheeler and Caitlyn Clark, and that friendship, amazing. Just a little slice of life moments throughout. And Caitlyn's quoted it extensively. And as I said, I'm very proud of the book. So thanks for letting me talk about it. And my pitch is now, I'm finished.
Great pitch. Thank you for that. Thank you again for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Everybody, remember the book. It's coming out, you said July 8th. On Her Game, Caitlyn Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports. Christine Brennan, absolutely a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening and tuning in. Please remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Christine.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Sonar Network.